Yeah, what you want is already in you. So if Danielle, Steve gets off this call today and decided to run a marathon, do whatever you choose it. They do it. It's amazing. Or they go to Tony and they walk on fire and they come back on Monday and they're changed. Did Tony install anything in them? Did this information do it? No, it just lit up what's already sleeping. You already have everything in you. You have everything to be great. You have everything to be everything you want to be. It just hasn't been lit yet. And that.
Welcome to the Sales Problem Podcast. Here is the problem we are trying to solve. Every year you hit the reset button and you have to beat your numbers and grow your business. You have to get quicker, faster, and better. We are two guys trying to solve that sales problem, trying to help you grow by enhancing what you know about the art and science of selling and personal development. Along the way, we're going to interview some interesting characters and debate some different angles about this common business problem. So thanks for joining us. Let's get growing. Welcome back to the Sales Problem Podcast, and welcome to Season 2. I'm your host, Daniel Burns, and joining me is my confident, capable, and highly caffeinated co-host, Steve Comerford. Steve, how you feeling about season number 2?
Dan, I'm pumped about this. I can't believe season 1 is already in the can. We're working on season 2, so this is exciting. And feeling like we got a lot of new ideas percolating this year. So one thing that we're going to change up this year is a little bit of a review of everybody's a salesperson's favorite drink of the day, that being coffee. We're not getting sponsored by any of these companies by any means, but it's a key part of a salesperson's day. It's definitely a key part of my day, waking up and getting going for the day. So, and it brings me back to a story of a sales rep used to call me every morning, and he was always going through the Tim Hortons drive-thru. He said, "Oh, hang on a second, I got to order my double," and then we get back on our conversation. But before we get going, Dan, so before we start thinking, what are you drinking?
Steve, every person's favorite drink if you're in sales is coffee, and I start every morning with a coffee. And what I started brewing for this podcast is coffee from today's guest, Alvin Brown. And this is called Royal Black Coffee by Organo. It's a rich flavored coffee with hints of chocolate, and it's rich in antioxidants. Not only does it have a great flavor, Steve, but it also has a mushroom blend. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, not the magic kind of mushrooms, a different kind of mushroom. It's a Ganoderma mushroom, also known as red reishi mushrooms. So this is great for your immune system, for energy, for stamina, for cognitive function. Pretty much, Steve, what every salesperson will need to start the day. So I was excited with Alvin coming on this show. So I ordered through his affiliate link, and we're going to put that in the show notes. So season 2, we're creating more value by giving you just those little extra nuggets to link you to something great. And this is a great one. So before we get to the doings, Steve, what are you brewing?
Well, no mushrooms, and I don't know about antioxidants, but I'm drinking Cranky Pants, Dan. So
that's
it's
soothing.
Hey, hold on a second. It's a smooth, dark blend. It's got notes of chocolate, so I like it. It's nice. A couple of cups of this, and I'm off and running for the day. So that's Crank Coffee. Cranky Pants. It's Neil Brothers actually distribute that. So it's a good one. So Let's go. Let's get going with Alvin, Dan.
All right. Well, season 2, we're kicking it off with a guy who changes lives. Now, I can say that, and I know that because I'm one of the lives that he has changed. And he did it with one sentence. He said to me, Dan, you're not dreaming big enough. Our guest today is none other than Alvin Brown, who is the author of Journey to Personal Greatness. And I'm going to hold the book up here if you're watching the podcast so that you can see it. This is a book that I read cover to cover. And what I loved about it is it takes me forever to read a book. This one, I absolutely just went straight through because it felt like Alvin was talking to me in this book. So it's one that you want to pick up. Alvin also has a podcast that I binge, I love it, called Personal Mastery Training. So make sure when you're not listening to The Sales Problem that you go check out his podcast. We're going to link you to that. So Alvin helps athletes at the highest level, and he also helps business owners achieve personal mastery. He helps them win at all levels in the game of life, in business, and sports. Listeners, not only will you get great sales info today, but you're also going to get some great info on health because Alvin is also the owner of the Center for Healing and Peak Performance. Alvin believes that when we master the inner game, there's no external competition. And that really aligns for this podcast here. It aligns with building the best version of yourself. It aligns with solving the sales problem, which is trying to get that consistent growth year over year and the growth in yourself. So I want to welcome Alvin Brown to season 2 of the Sales Problem Podcast. Alvin, tell us how you're feeling right now and tell our listeners your version of who you are and what you are passionate about.
Daniel and Steve, thank you very much for having me here. And Daniel, I'm gonna give you a big credit here, kudos, because I tell you, when people introduce me and what I do, there's gonna be some point I'm gonna go, oh, they got that one, they missed that one. For instance, the Center for Healing and Peak Performance, I've heard it spun 10 different ways. The Center for Peak, and these are people who have even come to me for years. They've still kind of mess it up a little bit, or the book Journey to Super Greatness or something. Man, you did that right. So I've got to give you credit. I've got to give it to you. You delivered that on the money. So what am I? Who am I, and what am I doing? See, years ago, I started on my path. I'm coming from a single mom who, Kingston, Jamaica, born in Kingston, Jamaica. She raised 5 kids. Now, I'm the youngest of the 5. So now when I go back and I think about a single mom, woman in the 60s, late 60s and 70s, with 5 kids, raising them on her own in Kingston, Jamaica, poor, dirt poor, I'm like, how did she do it? So she brought us all here, brought me here to Canada, first of all, on my own, and left our siblings, 4 siblings in Jamaica for 2 years. And then she worked her butt off at house cleaning and working at a hotel, and finally brought the other 4 to Canada in 1979. So you're thinking about that. And the reason why I brought that up is I came from a beginning where we didn't have a lot. And I would spend 2 years, think about it, emigrating to a new country, new culture, new everything, alone, leaving my siblings behind. So this led me a lot of time to think about life, think about the challenges and the hardships and a lot of introspection. So this is why today I'm so curious about us, our journey. And at one point I wanted to become an elite athlete because I thought I wasn't going to go beyond higher education. No one before me has gone beyond the higher education. So for me, school was just an inconvenience. It was just getting my way to get towards my goal of becoming an elite athlete. I boxed, I did martial arts, I did martial arts all around the world, and I danced professionally, competitively. I did all these athletic things thinking that was going to be my path. But as life would be, it's 1% of a 1% make it. And I wasn't part of that 1%. However, I still have the drive and the passion. That's what it taught me: drive, passion, goal setting, teamwork, falling down, getting back up, falling 7, getting back up 8, and persevering and resiliency. So I took that same passion, that same focus from sports, and I said, what am I going to do with my life? And then I loved to work with the body, the human body. So that entered me into the human body realm. I started as a personal trainer in the 90s. And then that wasn't going anywhere where I wanted to go. So I thought, okay, I got to raise my sights a little bit higher, and thought, let me bite the bullet, go back to school, which I never thought I would have went. And that just opened me up to raising my standards for myself, what I believe. I kept stacking my wins. I got through the massage school. I went from massage, that opened me up to anatomy and physiology, and I went from there to, the list is too long to go on here, but just kept on being curious about us. And so for 30 years, I listened to, well, I would say in 2009, so I'd say for 20 years, I listened to us, people that came into me. They came in for pain, but I kept listening, and pain was just the symptom. The deeper cause was many, many things. I got curious about us. And then I studied. This is a guy again. Remember, I didn't think I was made for school. I went back and I got my degree in psychology, and I started to study psychology, but I didn't want to go all the way and get a PhD or anything like that. I just found that psychology was a little bit limiting. So I started studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Since this is a sales podcast, your audience for sales, a lot of people out there in sales would know about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It's been used a lot in sales, understanding people, building rapport. So that enabled me to understand my clients. And then it led my athletes. Since I was an athlete, it led to where I am today, and so on and so on. So all of that together led me to being, this personal mastery training was a side hustle while I was working with people with pain. But when the pandemic hit, I took it from there to exploding it. And now it's been doing really well. I worked with some of the best people in the fitness and bodybuilding arena. Some of your guests may have heard of Ronnie Coleman, 8-time Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia, and a lot of Canadians that they may not have heard of, Ben Pakulski, Fuad, and so on and so on. But how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if they're elite over there, trust me, it's the same mindset they can take over here. So I learned a lot about the elite players and how they work, and I really study it. So that's, in a nutshell, shortened version of my 30 years of study, and I've got more books coming out. I'm just passionate about, how do we figure this game out called life? That's what personal mastery training is about. How do we figure it out? It's complex.
You've got me excited already, Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
And just for people that didn't catch everything there, let me summarize some of the things. This is why Alvin is kicking off season 2. A boxer, a martial artist, a dancer, personal trainer, massage, psychology, NLP, coaching, speaking, author, osteopathy. There's so many things that he's going to bring. So keep listening. I'm excited. Mm-hmm. Steve?
Well, I'm impressed, Alvin. You are a constant learner. It sounds like you're continue to push it. I've got a 2-parter for you, and it's a new part of our podcast we wanted to kind of kick off this year as a drop the mic moment. But it's a 2-parter, and the first question I have is around personal growth, right? And you've seen a lot of people in your 30 years, and recently you talked about, coaching a lot of high performing elite athletes. But I'd like to get your advice for that mid-range salesperson, business person that's kind of in the middle of, I don't know, it's not really good success. It's kind of mediocre results, and really how to push through and have growth in their business and in their sales portfolio. So that's part number 1. Do you have any advice there?
Absolutely. Anyone. So let me kind of get that straight. This is for someone who hasn't really hit the bullseye yet of their dreams. They're kind of waffling between being good enough, but not really hitting the bullseye.
Yeah.
Okay. So that answer, I go back to the next book I'm writing called The Four Pillars of Mastery. And that comes down to clarity. Though I
Hmm.
find if you're one, as Zig Ziglar, some of you in sales would know about Zig Ziglar, he calls it the wandering generality versus the meaningful specific. If you're a wandering generality, meaning that, you see, here's the thing a lot of people don't realize, the power of the words. When people get out of school, I often ask young people going into university and then when they get out, so what do you think you want to do when you get out? Well, if I could just make enough money and pay my bills and I'm going to be okay. A lot of people say that. And guess what people do when they do that? They get out of school and for their entire career, they make enough money, pay their bills, but nothing extra. So a lot of us set our targets so low to what we apparently, realistic. We all want to be realistic, as if us now, look at us, we're talking on this Zoom, and is that realistic 40 years ago or 20 years ago? No. So this idea of realistic, we have to be careful of what we call realistic. And where you are now in your career, your sales career, your life is, don't set it to where you are now, because where you are now, the same you won't be able to take you to that next level. What we need to do is we need to get clear on how much you want to make. How many of your listeners have written down how much I want to make and what am I going to give to get that service? I mean, it's in Think and Grow Rich. If you read that book, Think and Grow Rich, he talks about the 6 ways to turn desire into gold. And the first one is to write down what you want. Bruce Lee did it when he came to America. He wrote down, it's on the internet, just punch in Bruce Lee and you'll see his letter he wrote to himself. He wrote down, he was clear about what he wanted. Second, what are you going to give? It's not going to be magic. It's not where you sit on your couch and you wish and you close your eyes and it's going to appear. No. What are you willing to give to get what you want? And then what actions are you going to take every day to, those who are at the top of their mountain don't get there by mistake. You don't fall up the mountain. You climb that sucker. You climb up that mountain. It's not going to be a mistake that oh, wow, look, I'm all of a sudden wealthy and healthy and happy and wow, we have a great relationship just by error. No, it's got to be by intention. So if you're stuck right now, wherever you are stuck, just realize that you're stuck there because it's between your ears. You need to step back, write down a clear goal of where you want to go. What are you going to do to get it? And what commitment you're going to make to get there, and be consistent about it, about moving up that ladder towards that goal. So in a nutshell, summarize, I'm going to challenge the listener listening to this who is in that position. What are your goals? What are your goals? Are they written? Are they vague? Or if you wrote them in the beginning of the year, January, have you looked at them at all? Because you can't hit a goal, you can't hit a target you can't see. So you got to set that goal and you got to put down what you'll give. Because sometimes you may not want to give what it takes to get that goal. So be careful what you ask for. It's going to require you to grow. It's going to require you to give to get it. So that's the first place I'd start. I'm going to say they didn't have a clear goal.
Excellent. Now, part 2 of that question, Alvin, and this ties to your background in health, is, do you have any advice for business people out there in terms of health and eating and nutrition and how that can help provide or at least fuel your success and fuel your growth?
Absolutely. It is tied. What you put in your mouth. Think about food like information. Food is information. Okay, so every morsel of calorie that you put in your mouth is information to every cell. Your 500 trillion cells in your body receives this information. So if you're putting in, the old quote, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you put something vague into Google, you're going to get a whole bunch of answers you didn't want. Well, what do you want? In my book, when you read my book, I actually don't touch on anything about nutrition, because I tell you, diets change over time. When I started in the 90s, it was Zone Diet, South Beach, this, that, whatever. What I talk about is the mindset around food and eating. I don't talk about a specific diet because now we're into keto, paleo, We're into intermittent fasting. We're into gut microbiome. They're talking about all kinds of things now, gut-brain connection. There's so many things, but here's the one advice that someone said. What's the best diet workout program that will get you peak performance? And everyone can put your hands up. And they said the ones you'll do consistently. Right? So if you're going to stick to one thing, stick to it consistently. And how do you feel when you're sticking to this one thing? Is it fasting? Should you be fasting? Because that's been shown to great for rejuvenating the cells. It's great for thinking. I gave that to one of my clients who's a doctor, he's a surgeon, and he started fasting. And he says, Alvin, I'm so clear during my surgeries. I'm so clear in the operating room because it just frees you from always thinking about food. And there's a process called autophagy where the cells rejuvenate themselves because they've had a chance now to actually do it instead of always being bombarded by food. So in answer to your question, yes, if you should treat your listeners should treat themselves like an elite athlete, because to be successful, you are. The game is always on, and the game is life. So you should go about it like an athlete does. You'll never catch an athlete who's training at the highest level who abuses their body, abuses their mind, and expects to either, one, get to the top, and second, to stay there. So I treat myself, I'm 55 years old right now, and I helped to raise 4 kids, run my practice, and work a lot. So I treat myself at the elite level. So I think everybody out there should do the same. So that's for sure.
I love it. I love it. Something you just said, Alvin, that I want to just come back to and make sure that our listeners really took in, because I think it's one of the best things said on our podcast, is you don't fall up the mountain. I mean, that small statement's so impactful to make sure that we have intention with everything that we do. And in your book, Journey to Personal Greatness, there's some things, specific things that you say that I really like, and it's in the words. It's in that word journey, because in today's world, we're all concerned with getting results, and sometimes it's the destination. But I feel like some of the people that I work with or coach, they're missing that whole journey piece. And then when you talk about personal greatness, that sounds like something that we've got some control over, that we can actually, shape the outcome of it. But if somebody sets a goal like, personal greatness, that seems like a huge goal. And is that something that most people can kind of wrap their heads around, or, what's involved in terms of getting to personal greatness?
All right. This is a great question. I'll tell you why it's great. The personal part in that title is key, because what I call greatness, what you call greatness, what Steve's called greatness is different for Steve. For Steve, greatness might be raising his kids or raising his family or whatever it might be, and retiring at a nice and taking it easy and with a good legacy. That might be greatness for Steve. Some people might be climbing Kilimanjaro and all the mountains and all the hills and all the valleys and going. That might be greatness for them. But you have to define what you call greatness. And you see, then it won't be overwhelming, because it's personal. I'm not trying to please you. I'm not trying to please anybody. I'm not trying out there to be better than anyone else, better than Muhammad Ali, or be the greatest. Personal greatness. Define it. What do you call greatness for you? And I do believe, this sounds cliche, but I believe everyone has greatness in them. There's 8 billion people on this planet, plus, and I believe everyone has greatness in them. And again, it's defined by what they call great. I think there's a great poem that I want everyone to. I made my kids read this, and I said it to them multiple times, and they know it. It's called, Mariam Williamson is the author, and it's called Your Deepest Fear. And I heard it in a movie called Coach Carter, and they used it, a little piece of it in Coach Carter. And even Nelson Mandela took this quote and in his inauguration speech, and everyone thought it was Nelson's, but it's Marianne Williamson. It says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's not our darkness that most frightens us. It's our light. And who are you to be gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Who are you not to be your child of God? And it goes on and on. So this poem says everything. All of us have greatness in us. However, with great responsibility, when you reach that greatness, it comes with great responsibility. So a lot of people will push back at achieving their greatest self. There's a great book by Stephen Pressfield. I'm letting you have all these books that I love. Stephen Pressfield has a book called The War of Art. Not the art of war, but the war of art. And in that book, he talks about it. When you get close to your greatness, all of us, we will meet resistance. If you are scared to do something, it's because it is what you should be doing. It's closest to your heart. See, a lot of us can do menial things and unimportant things that doesn't mean a lot to us personally. But when it comes to writing, singing, releasing this podcast, being out in the public, in the arena, a lot of us will shy away because when a critic comes at us to judge us, it hurts a lot more when it's something that's meaningful to us. So we tend to back off, and we tend to play a lower game, because when you come at me and say my work isn't that great, but I'm not doing work that's really my passion, I can let it go. But when I put my best stuff out there in my heart and you cut it, it cuts deep. So I tend to play a little smaller game, so you don't hurt me, so you don't get to my soul. So I think that's the reason why a lot of us don't. There's many people listening to this. I've met doctors who came to see me who didn't want to be doctors. They want to be something else, but they're trying to please their immigrant parents who believe I can brag on my kids if they became lawyers, doctors, whatever it is. And so they want to be something else, though. So you have to define what you call greatness and then go for it. So yeah, that's where the personal comes from. And this one's called personal mastery, meaning you're mastering everything's personal. You're not trying to be a master of, figure it out. The first, though, is clarity. What do you want? What do you call greatness? What does everyone out there call greatness? Define it, then go for it.
I love that. It's me versus me. It's not me versus everyone else.
It always is. There's a secret to you, by the way. You just discovered a secret. There is no enemy outside.
And I think that the fear that you're talking about is the fear of judgment and criticism. I think That's something that I see holds a lot of people back. And that book that you mentioned by Stephen Pressfield, we could talk here for an hour on resistance.
Yeah.
There's so much in that. So I hope our listeners go back and look up some of these resources. Alvin, I want to dive into something personal because I'm a fan of your podcast.
Yeah.
And definitely. So I want to tell you the impact that your podcast had on me. So I was driving one day, I put on the episode, and it just blew me away because you started to talk about the Yellow Brick Road and the Wizard of Oz. Okay. Now, I co-authored a book called The Yellow Brick Road. So right away, I started listening and going, hold on, I've got a connection to this. And I had just done a workshop with a group of salespeople, and I had talked to them about the Wizard of Oz. And my spin on it was talking about the Tin Man, the Lion, and the Scarecrow, because I think for salespeople, some of the things that we need are the same things they were searching for: heart, to create great connection to people, courage, because salespeople have to walk through doors where they don't know anybody. They have to face rejection and judgment and criticism, and then brains. Scarecrow was looking for brains because we need to be strategic when we, manage a business and we have to cost justify things. But you said something completely different that I hadn't picked out. So I was hoping to ask. You talked about everything you need is already inside you. And that was the big discovery from the movie. Can you tell our listeners, they've all probably watched The Wizard of Oz, what that really means? The answers are already inside you.
Yeah, what you want is already already in you. So if Danielle, Steve gets off this call today and decided to run a marathon, do whatever you choose it, they do it, it's amazing. Or they go to Tony and they walk on fire and they come back on Monday and they're changed. Did Tony install anything in them? Did this information do it? No, it just lit up what's already sleeping. You already have everything in you. You have everything to be great. You have everything to be everything you want to be. It just hasn't been lit yet. And that's where that movie, The Wizard of Oz, came from. They went looking for brains and looking for courage, looking for this and that. And they ended up finding out the man behind the curtain isn't what they thought and so on. Well, that's life. It's all up to you. Whatever you want is already there. No one can install courage in you. You have to do things that bring about your courage. And I also watched one of the episodes. I don't know if you heard the latest episode I did where I was watching one of those movies with I forgot the name of it now, but it talks about, in the movie, it was talking about when you ask for something from, it's a movie about God, and when you ask for something from God, he said, does God just give it to you, or does he give you an opportunity to go and earn it? If you want a happy family, do you think happiness just falls on you? Is there opportunities to go and create this happy family? If you ask for courage, do you think you just get courage overnight, or do you get opportunities to prove you're courageous? So there's always ways. If you want to be smart, guess what? You have to take a test to go, oh my goodness, I actually passed it. I am smart. So whatever you want is already in you. It's already there. You name it. Think about it. So listeners, what is it that you need more of? Money? If you need more income, guess what you have to do? You have to now use your resources, develop even more courage, ask for the business more often, get to know social media, whatever it is it's already there. The world is abundant. It's right there. What do you need to do? Improve your sales call? Do a script, write a script, create a sales call that you can measure. If I close this, if I A/B split test, if I do this, is it a better close? Hire a coach. What is that you need to do? It's already in you. You just have to ignite it. You have to find a way to ignite it and get it going. So yeah, that's what that movie was about. That's what that whole thing is about, is this idea that you name it, write down what is it that you think you don't have enough of yet. And then you'll find out that when you discover it, man, I already had it. I just needed someone to turn the light on or a path to go down. It's already there. So just go ignite it. But again, in my book, the second one coming out, the second C, so I've got 4 C's. Clarity, what do you want? Second one is courage. Courage. The C word, courage. And the third is commitment. And the last one's consistency. Those are the 4 pillars of mastery. So when I ask you to go and write down what you want, you're going to need the second C, courage. Vulnerability. Are you going to be vulnerable enough to ask for the business, to ask for the money you want, to ask for the raise that you need, to ask for you name it? That takes a lot of courage. So that's what that whole thing's about.
I love all the C's. I'll add one more because you mentioned coaching, and I think people do need a coach, and you are a great one. But one of the things that I see all the time is people thinking they're going to get the answers or the advice, and what the coach does, a great coach like you, is brings out those things that are already inside you. Yeah, and that's what's magical about coaching.
Well, you want to grow your chest? Well, I can't do the push-ups for you. You have to get down on that ground. You got to give me 4 sets of 25 every day, and your chest will grow. But you notice I can tell you do 4 sets of 25, but I can't do it for you. So there's no magic out there. There's no magic.
Yeah, too often they're looking for the easy answer.
Easy answer. What's the recipe?
Or I watched you on one interview, and it's like you're keeping your fingers crossed, hoping that things are all going to line up magically. Yeah.
Eyes closed. Come on, baby. Come on. Happy life. Money. Where is it? No.
So I'm curious, Alvin. Right, you deal with a lot of different people. You talked about doctors, talked about athletes. But is there a common piece between a high level athlete and a high level business person, like a highly successful business person? What's
Love
what's
that.
the connection there?
Love that question. Love that question. Here's why. There's no difference. No difference. Success leaves clues. Okay? Go and watch an elite. Go and watch an elite anything. Anything. Speaker, you name it. Follow the elite and watch their discipline. As I said, and if you are, say, go back to your question a little while ago, Steve, about whoever is stuck right now. If you take this one thing away, success leaves clues. Go and spot somebody in your industry. And by the way, this is a thing. You talk about vulnerability again. If you're in sales in a company, who is your top seller in your company? Look at them. And I dare you to follow them and say they're doing exactly what you're doing. And if they're the top seller and you're, waffling around a little bit, I dare you, take them to lunch. And here's the other thing. Here's the other secret. This is a secret. They'll take you to lunch and they'll tell you their secret. A lot of people think this idea that, if they're successful, they'll never tell me the secret weapon of how no, they'd love to tell you. I'm telling you, successful people love to share, but they never get asked. Not many people ask them, how do you do it? Can I take you to lunch? Can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you a coffee? Tell me, how did you get to the top? They'll tell you. Because you know what? Here's the thing. We can admit today is not a lack of information. Today is the information age. Google, YouTube, you name it. There's no lack of information, but here's where there's a lack of application. Application of what you learn. When you start to go to lunch with that person in your field who's ahead of you, they tell you 5 things, 10 things. Apply that. And I'm guaranteeing you, even if you don't get where they are, because there's a price to pay for that. Even if you don't want to get there, but going halfway, it'll move you from where you are now to where you want to be. But some of the things you might find out, though, is that they're at the top of that game. You may not want to be up there because it comes with a lot of responsibility. I had a chance to do some security for Tony Robbins a while ago. And I saw how he worked. And I said, okay, cool. I don't want that life. I don't want, it's just too much for me. But that's Tony's life. He wants that. That's his thing. But obviously, I grew up on Tony, listening to him. As a personal development, I've got his tapes and CDs and everything else. But when I had a chance, it was such a blessing to get backstage, literally, and watch him work. He's busy. He flew in on a private jet. He waited in the room, and he was a little late. They pushed back the event, and I thought he was going to go back and chill. No, he went back on a call, and he was heading off right after the event to go to CNN. It was during the election time, and he was going to go. I can't. That's not me. So be careful what you ask for. You may not want everything that the top wants, but it's okay to be halfway there. Shoot for the moon, you end up with the stars. It's all cool, right? So just figure that out. But that's where I would say success leaves clues.
So just to tie in on that one, I hear you said discipline at the beginning. Is that the key then?
Mm-hmm.
But the level
Absolutely.
of discipline, at least taking 1 or 2 things from that top person and putting it into action. You don't have to do all 5. Yeah, but just 1 or 2.
Oh. Yeah, this is you guys are throwing me lobs here. Here's the thing. One of my mentors, I've had many mentors, Dr. Tom Hill, I'm going to give him, been a mentor for 16, 17 years, coach and mentor. He said a few things, but here's one that applies right now. One idea, well executed, can change your life forever. One idea. When your listeners listen to this podcast, should they leave disappointed if they didn't get 20 ideas, 20 good ideas? Geez, this is a disappointing podcast. I left it only 15. No, you know what they need? One idea. You can't execute on 20, 30, 40. You need one good idea. Commit yourself to executing on it. If I said to you, you need to eat for performance, not for tongue, not for pleasure. I know a lot of people foodies out there. But if you eat 80% of your diet for performance, your brain will improve. Your execution will improve. You have better rest, better sleep, better mental acuity, better execution rate, less fatigue. Yeah, that's execute on that for 3-6 months. Everything else falls in line. So yeah, discipline leads to freedom. Wherever you are stuck, wherever you feel enslaved in your lack of sleep, lack of execution, it is your master. Discipline leads to freedom. So if you can develop some discipline in executing on the things you know you should be doing, if you know you should get up and a little earlier so you can set your goals, so you can have quiet time to yourself, so you can get your head in the game, get up earlier. Stop hitting that alarm clock. If you know you need to get to the gym so when your body feels right, your mind goes with it. So all of these things take discipline, and it will lead to freedom. Wherever you are feeling enslaved, remind yourself, that's the area I'm not having discipline. That's the area I need to apply more of myself to. So definitely. Discipline is key, crucial.
I love it. I think the mushrooms are kicking in, guys. Season 2
sir.
is on fire. Wow.
Yes.
Alvin, you've dropped so many things. I love that. One idea well executed. And I want to stay on this topic of you working with great athletes because, people like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Ben Pekulski, those are all names that I go, wow, they are at the very pinnacle, of their sport. So I want to know for the salesperson, Alvin, that's traveling on the road right now, and they want that kind of one takeaway. Is there something that you learned from working with people who are at the top of their field that you'd say, okay, for a salesperson, this is a great takeaway that you learned from, people performing at that level? Maybe one of your favorite athletes.
One of the things, I'm going to go a little bit off of, this is for sales. This comes from NLP. Well, I'll give you two, actually. This one comes from NLP. The meaning of communication is the response you get. So I'll say that again, just for the meaning of communication is the response you get. So when you're communicating with your prospect in front of you, and you're not getting the response when you open your mouth and you let a few words out, and you look at them and you notice that, body language, maybe their posture changed. Something happened. It wasn't what you wanted. Change your communication until you continue to change it, modify it until you get the response you want. So the meaning of communication. And then the next one for your question is what I learned from my athletes is a sense of discipline. Again, we go back to discipline. When it comes to bodybuilding, Fuad, one of my clients, he has a term, he says, discipline, sacrifice without regret. And that was his key statement, sacrifice without regret. You must be willing to sacrifice the good so you can get to great. So for those salespeople who are out there, are you working on your sales pitch every day? Or do you just wing it? It's a discipline. You shouldn't wing. Remember, when I go back to what I said earlier, the meaning of communication is the response you get. If I'm doing these sales calls and I'm not getting the response, the sales, I'm not closing, I got to change my communication. There's something that has to change. I have to have that discipline, to the rigor, to say, okay, I say it this way. And they, so one of the errors I would say I made in my athletic career was not knowing that when I had a good day, there's something I did. And when I had a quote unquote bad day, it was something I did. And the elite, they are very OCD. Go and watch them. They follow our routine. By the way, I'll go back to Tony Robbins. One of the things I watched, he puts himself in state before he goes out on stage. I didn't know that. Still, to this day, I study this stuff and I didn't really apply it like that. Tony doesn't go out. So when we were out in the hallway waiting for him to come out, he'd put everybody out and went into the room by himself. And when I first picked up Tony, he didn't look like what I expected. He didn't look like the Tony that I grew up on, this dynamic. Because he was playing squash. He went to play squash. So he looked like Tony, looked like a big guy. You can't mistake him. But he didn't look like what I thought. But when he went in that room and put everybody out, and he came out sweating, and he looked like Tony, I'm like, oh, he made a transformation. So nothing. And then when he went to the stage, so he didn't expect the audience to make him feel better. No, he put himself in a state that would project out to the audience, and he bent the universe in a way to meet him at the level that he's at. He didn't cross his fingers and hope he had a good day. He made it. He created it before he went out, and all of a sudden the audience was receptive to him, and he rocked it. So that's when I left that going, see, athletes will do preparation. The good ones come 2 hours before they play, and they're out there shooting hoops or whatever it is they do before they go. The ones you never see that warm the bench, they don't have this discipline. So if you your sales call should be something you tweak and practice, and knowing that the mean of communications response I get, if I'm not closing the sales, if I'm closing only 20% of my sales, then change my communication. Go study other people who are closing. There's lots of videos on YouTube about closing and seminars, workshops you can go to. Today, there's no excuse, by the way, because now we have virtual. You can go study someone in LA from wherever you are, and they're putting on a virtual something. So video, there's online, there's zero reasons for you not to elevate your game. The only thing is lacking that discipline and rigor to, again, if you're just playing, if it's not imperative for you to be successful, then you'll just be playing. If it's imperative, you'll do what you got to do to survive and thrive.
So many great insights there. But what it brought up for me is it's really putting the pro in professional salesperson.
Yeah.
And are you just out there winging it and going from door to door? And we'll see how it goes, and we'll hope it all turns out well.
Yeah. And feeling bad when you get a no, instead of going, why did I get a no? Okay. No, you know what? It was the opening. I got to change my opening, And then when I do a different opening, I look at the person. Oh, they're lighting up. Okay. No, I'll keep this opening. Oh, no, I didn't get any reaction at all. Tweak the opening. It's a game. Make it a game. It's not personal. If you got to take it personal, get out of sales. It's not a game.
That's so impactful because it brings up, I remember, going into offices and saying something and seeing that response and going, that didn't work.
Yeah, it failed.
And then going back to the car, writing out what I said, writing what I was going to say on the next call. And then when you saw that response from somebody and you got to the next step, like, okay, I got to say it that way every time.
Yeah.
And now I've just found a little trick. I won't say it these ways. I will say it these other ways because that works, that doesn't. And it's the process of finding that out.
And then I will also add to that context. Depend on context. I may say it that way again. I might put that one, the one that didn't work, I might put in my back pocket though. It might work in this context.
Yes.
But it's not going to work in this one. Like if I'm dealing with that person, maybe gender, maybe who knows, ethnicity, or it may not work over there, but it might work over there. I'm going to just put it, but all little pieces of your toolbox. It's a game.
Hey Dan, I was going to share a little story with Alvin. Why I like this guy Dan, Alvin, is because years ago him and I did a little cold calling contest. So it was all trial and error. We made 54 calls in a day, and just kept trying.
In a day,
checking. That one didn't work. All right, you're next. You go.
Yeah.
That one worked. Oh, I gotta
love
steal
it.
that
See?
one. I'm gonna use it on the next call. So just a little,
Game.
but he beat me.
Gamify.
He beat me.
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go. There you go. Right. See, gamify that sucker right there, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
So, Alvin, I'm going to get personal again because I hired you as my coach.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you told me was that I wasn't dreaming big enough.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, I think that's a perfect example of what a great coach does, telling you sometimes the things you necessarily may not want to hear, but that you need to hear.
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners why coaching is so important, and why is that whole concept of dreaming bigger dreams important in business and in life and ultimately to personal mastery?
Yeah, great question again. So that you can't dream big enough is another mentor I stole from my mentor again. My 80 turns 88 this September soon. Anyways, so he said to me, Alvin, you can't dream big enough. And think about it. Who can? Where you are now. So think about where you are now and whatever you're dreaming about. And you get there. Guess what you realize? Oh, damn, I can go a little higher. And then when you get to that higher vantage point, oh, damn, I can go a little higher. Oh, it's endless. It's endless again, but it's all about the responsibility that you have every level you climb to, right? So you can't. It's impossible to dream big enough. You can't dream big enough. You can't, because where you are now. Say if someone's making $50,000 a year, and when you're at 50, you can't imagine, because you're at your thermostat level at that point. You can't imagine $1 million, because it's just out of our realm of comfort. So, but guess what? One day when you get to the million, you're gonna go, there's 2, there's 3. Then you get to 20 million, there's 30 million. Apple is at $1 trillion company now. Amazon's at $1 trillion, and there's 10 trillion. There's whatever's after trillion. So you just can't dream big enough. That's first of all. But you got to decide how big of a rock you want to push at the end of the day. So, and then the next part about coaching. Here's another. I'm Mr. Quote man. I take these quotes. The other quote that I love is, you can't see the frame of the picture you're in. So, let's take boxing. I often use the idea of boxing. So if I'm jabbing, right, my left jab, but every time I jab, my right hand drops, it happens to a lot of people. The right hand drops by instinct, drops. See, it dropping, I can't see it, but my coach can, because it's unconscious for me. It's just a nervous tick or whatever it might be. And my coach says, hey, do you know every time you jab, your right hand drops? That all that fighter has to do is bob this way and hit you that way and time it, and it's going to get you because your hand drops. Oh, I didn't see it. So a lot of times in business, us will be the bottleneck in our business or whatever it might be. We are the bottleneck. So the coach is there to tell you when your breast stings. They're going to tell you that, you're not doing the things you should be doing. You're cutting corners. You're not disciplining yourself enough to go to that next level. They're there to show you, because most times, all of us, this is a all of us thing. The reason why I have 3 coaches right now. I have a young guy could be my son, which I had to squash my ego to do that, because it's like, man, I know I've been around a lot, but I love this guy's humility, and I love the way he's very humble, and I can just spit things at him and he tells me. So and then I have a 77-year-old coach. And then I have my 86-year-old mentor, and then I have a group. So I'm in a lot of different, because I truly believe I can't see my frame. I can't see it. So every coach who wants to be a coach should be coached, because you can't see what you're doing, how you become the bottleneck, because it's unconscious. So everyone needs to have someone around them, a mentor, whatever it might be, to tell them, hey, you got to cut that, or do this, or do that. Wherever you're struggling, it'll be, I would advise to getting yourself someone who will tell you your breast stings, tell you the truth. You don't need yes people around you. Oh, that was a great presentation. Oh my goodness, that was amazing. No, you need someone to go, great presentation. However, here's what I would do. at the end, you went a little long on the end. You need to, right? You need something. I'm in Toastmasters too, still to this day. So, I'm always in something where I'm putting myself out there. I was in a group once where it's a 3-hour, you would be grilled in your business. It's close the doors and you'd be grilled for 2 hours. You're on the hot seat. They're talking about your business. They're talking about your life, and you're being grilled by 7 other people who are just, and they're brutal. They're not there to tell you, oh, you're amazing. Wow. No, it was to tell you, hey, here's where you're weak. This is what you got to do. And it's not to cut you up. It's to let you know. It's my friend called it live bullets. Business is live bullets. At any time you can get hit. So you got to be serious about it. So yeah. So this is why I think everyone, you can't dream big enough because it's just impossible. You can't. And secondly, you need a coach because there's right now you are dropping your hand and you're going to get knocked out at some point. You're going to get an 8 count. You get knocked out. Something's going to happen in 3 areas: relationship, your life, your health, and your money. Those are the 3 big areas. There's somewhere you are dropping the ball.
Really well said, Alvin. And I just want to, publicly say thanks for that advice to me, because maybe this podcast, I wouldn't have been able to dream big enough to get to this point where we've got this show and we're on season 2. So,
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad you're here with our listeners.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me.
And I'll add in there too, Dan, outside of a coach, you need a buddy, right? You need somebody that you can play off of.
Yeah.
If you're in sales, do you have a counterpart that pushes you, and do you push them? I think that's a key part of it too.
Yeah. Make
need
it
somebody
fun.
in your corner. Yeah. And have some fun with it.
Yep.
So I loved your quote, Alvin. Success leaves clues. So tell our guests, our listeners today, like, how can they see your stuff, your podcast, your coaching, any of the services, products? I got to check out that coffee, by the way, but tell us a little bit about how we can check into what you're up to.
Yeah, that coffee, it really is. I'll just quickly talk about it, and then I'll let you know. The coffee. Here's the thing. Drinking coffee is a big, especially in sales and in the business world. Grabbing your coffee, so on and so on. What I wanted was the slight edge. I wanted a slight edge. So since a lot of people won't cut out their coffee, and my son, he used to work at Tim Hortons here in Canada, and he said people used to come to that drive-through and get a large coffee with 4 sugars and double milk creams, and I'm like, wow, that's not. Did they have any coffee with that? So again, what we put in the mornings will get you going. What I do with my coffee is I put it, so it's got the mushrooms in it. And anyone on here listening, I would encourage you to Google independent. Go on Google Scholar or PubMed, publish, wherever you want, independent research, and put in Ganoderma, reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane, turkey tail, you name it, all the mushrooms. Put them in and put it up against any condition that you are struggling with, and you would be. It's almost unbelievable. And this is independent research. This is not the company. Independent research. So I thought, okay, why don't I put the odds in my favor then? If I'm drinking coffee and I can have this goodness infused in, why not? So it just gives me that edge, And like I said, I give it to. You'll notice that it doesn't have the dips, and I put a little bit of butter in mine, organic grass-fed butter with MCT oil, the bulletproof blend in there, and it satiates me because I do fasting, and it satiates me till at least 1 o'clock, which is when my fast ends, and then I can. So again, the edge, these things put the odds in our favor. When you put your seatbelt on, is it a guarantee you won't die in a car crash? No, but it's the odds are in your favor. These are just odds in your favor. Again, the little things. So if people want to get more of what I do and share my passion that I put out there, I'm on Instagram as a personal mastery training. Look for personal mastery. I am on Facebook, same thing, personal mastery training on my page. TikTok, Alvin Brown, I'm on there, and YouTube channel as well. I think it's Integrated Peak Performance on YouTube. And And I'll be releasing more books. You can find my books at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million in the U.S. And I'll be releasing my next book. I've got 2 books that are in 90% finished. One is Cracking the Entrepreneur Code, which is a book about my journey. A person who never believed they were an entrepreneur, who has now been an entrepreneur for 17 years, running my clinic successfully. And so I want to talk about the pitfalls that I went through, because it's been one hell of a ride. And then the next book I wrote is The 4 Pillars of Mastery. So those are by 2024, I should have both of those released.
Thank you, Alvin. On a note, really nice to meet you today. This has been a fantastic interview. So many great nuggets, and I hope our listeners take 1 or 2 and can start using it tomorrow. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Steve.
Yeah, and I can't wait for those books to come out, Alvin. I'll link all of our listeners to where to find you. One last thing on this coffee I have to mention.
Yes, sir.
It actually comes in packages.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why this is important to me. It might be important to other salespeople. I travel. I go to hotels all the time. Yes. Hotels have the worst coffee in the room, that you've ever drank, but I still drink it. Yeah. This is coming with me, Alvin, every time I travel. And now I'm going to have a nice way to start the day instead of the forced brew that generally sits in a hotel room. So
love it. And so, Danny, you brought up one thing really quickly with the sachet, with because it is measured in a sachet like that. Be sure, if anyone tries it, 6 to 8 ounces. If you do more than that, it will taste like the crappiest coffee you've ever had. Why? Because it's measured. So any more than that, it won't taste as good. So be mindful at the beginning to do as close a measurement as you can, and then you can eyeball after that. But otherwise, to give it an honest audition, be sure to measure it, because it is measured itself.
And I did the other night what you just talked about. I put some coconut oil in there, as well as almond butter. Yeah. And then mixed that up with this coffee, and it was absolutely delicious. Yeah, so
exactly. And one thing for your guests, when you talk about peak performance, is the mornings when you start your mornings, to start them off right, do not consume anything that will stimulate your insulin right out the gate, because it just primes you for the day when you are going sugar-free to start your morning, anything before noon. So FY.
Well, what an incredible journey you took us on today, Alvin, and we are truly blessed to have you kick off season 2 with your own touch of personal greatness. So I'm going to link everybody to the Organo Coffee, as well as all of Alvin's links. Alvin, today you helped us solve the sales problem, and you gave our listeners some new knowledge they need to thrive and succeed. You helped them grow by sharing what you know. Listeners, we love you. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening. And if you've learned from today's podcast, please send it to a friend who needs to listen. We'll see you next episode. Until then, keep on building the best version of you.